In 1960, four young men walked into a Woolworths, sat down at the lunch counter, and asked to be served. They were told that because they were black, they could not be served and that they had to leave. They refused to leave. This was the beginning of a pivotal and widespread movement within the civil rights movement. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. The Greensboro sit-in is a very huge moment, and it's a very well-known moment. But there is some controversy regarding what ultimately happened behind this. And of course, you could say there's controversy about all of the civil rights movement, because there's some people who still don't want to recognize the human rights, civil rights or human rights of black people. So just to say that there's some controversy is stating the obvious. But with the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 64, there was a passage in it, Title II, which prohibited private institutions, restaurants, hotels, and such, from specifically disallowing and discriminating against people based on their race. There are people who today, in 2021, feel that that is a violation of the Constitution and that businesses should be able to discriminate against who they want to for whatever reason. They should be able to choose who they serve and do not serve. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit more about what happened. You see, you had some very courageous young people, because that's who ultimately took things to the next level. They were moved by what they saw happening, by the injustices they saw happening, and the discrimination that they experienced, and they felt that they needed to do something about it, including being inspired by people like Gandhi and his message of nonviolence. They decided that they needed to do something, take matters into their own hands, non-violently, to effectuate some type of change. And they succeeded. They definitely succeeded, because even before the Civil Rights Act of 64 was passed, Woolworths changed its policy. Woolworth went from a policy of segregation and discrimination to allowing black people to eat at their lunch counters. And I want to make sure it's understood how important these young men and women were, how courageous they were, and how significant their contributions were. Because by no means, no stretch of the imagination, is it easy to go and, in the face of being told to get out, of the threat of arrest, and we're not talking about just arrest where you're very calmly and nicely handcuffed. I mean, a lot of these arrests were accompanied with beatings by police. So there was no doubt that they were putting themselves in harm's way to achieve an objective. And that needs to be understood. The issue that now I want to discuss is the Civil Rights Act of 64, particularly Title II. Because there are people who feel that that was unconstitutional and that private businesses should be allowed to discriminate, that in itself isn't necessarily something that, because there are some people who will find some reason to be upset about any advancement, any sort of legislation, any sort of action that's taken with the stated purpose of helping black people. There are people who will feel some type of way about it regardless. I am not one of those people. I, however, am a person that does not like Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 64. And I'm a person that questions the wisdom, the strategy, and the ultimate purpose of forcing companies that did not want to serve black people, that did not want to treat black people with respect and dignity, of forcing them to take our money. That is ultimately what I'm looking at. That is ultimately what I'm questioning. You see, no doubt the law should not be acting in a discriminatory manner towards black people. No doubt. I may even agree that individuals should not be acting in a discriminatory manner towards black people. Now, there's a huge difference between me saying that I don't think individuals should be acting in discriminatory manners towards black people and saying that there needs to be a law against it. Because regardless of what I may feel people should or should not be doing, that's a far cry from saying that the government needs to mandate and be involved in enforcing these moral judgments, these values. Because I do not believe that is the proper or legitimate function of government. Ultimately, what I'm saying is, let's take a look at it. If you have a company that does not want to serve black people, this company does not like black people, this company does not recognize the humanity, the dignity, this company has an animus. And the people at this company, the people that run this company have an animus and a hatred for black people. Why do I want to give them my hard-earned money and enrich their company? Why do I wish to contribute to the success and longevity of this company? And when it comes to something like food, why would I trust these people to handle my food and serve me food? They have a demonstrated contempt for me, and I'm still going to allow them to serve me food? What are they doing to my food? If they hate me so much that they're willing to not accept my money and turn me away, when they are forced to take my money, what will they do to my food? You see, I have no doubt that these young men and women had motivations that were sincere and admirable. But just because our motivations are sincere and admirable doesn't mean that the solutions we seek, that the goals we move towards are beneficial or wise or the best moves to be making. And it's something that we need to be acutely aware of, because even now that there is anger, there is rage, there is dissatisfaction with the status quo, if we are not careful, if we are not attentive, other people will shift our attention and our efforts into moves and and strategies that don't actually have a lasting and beneficial effect for us. So, what happens when you force a racist company to take black money? You subsidize racists. You've just you've helped them build wealth. They've already demonstrated that they don't like you. They've already demonstrated that they hate you. And you have decided that these are people that you should give your money to. These are businesses that you should allow to continue existing, that you should help thrive. That is not a good decision. That was not a good decision. And it's something we have to be aware of today. And this is one of the things one of the hard lessons I had to learn as I was doing these Black History meetings and gatherings over the years. That there were people whom I had the most enormous and utmost respect for, the admiration, these were heroes. But I had to come to grips with the fact that they, as we all are still human. We make mistakes. And those mistakes could be moral mistakes. Those mistakes could be strategic mistakes. We have to be willing to stop and analyze and say, wait a minute. Was that a good strategy? Was that even our strategy? Or was the movement somehow co-opted? We have to be willing to look at history in a context that is more than just nostalgic. We have to look at history with a critical eye. Because if we don't, then we learn nothing from history. If we only honor, and if we uncritically honor all of those that had good intentions and those that seem to have good intentions, we could be setting ourselves up for failure. But this is something that really comes to my mind now. Not so much because I want to see, not because I believe that we're going to get Title II, repealed, but more so because I see the potential. I don't just see the potential, I see it happening. I see the co-opting of movements happening. I see the energy. I see the righteous anger being shifted into strategies and objectives that don't really benefit us. The language sounds good, but the actual objectives, the actual goals being achieved are not in our interest. I'm seeing the co-opting happening right now today. I'm seeing people with agendas tell us what the solution to a problem of a year in 2020 where people are just furious with the lack of accountability of government. And people saying, well, the answer is to get more black faces in positions of authority. It sounds good, but the question is it really good? I mean, because doesn't it matter who these black faces are? Doesn't it matter what they plan to do? Because it could just be a way for somebody to get jobs for their buddies, to get positions of power for their buddies, for a class of people who aren't pursuing an agenda that is based on our improvement, our advancement, of just getting them in positions where they'll be good, and to hell with the rest of us. You see, the Civil Rights Act of 64 I understand. The Greensboro sit-ins, the sit-in movement. I get it. But I asked you, was that the best choice? Was that the best strategy? And who really benefited? Thank you for checking out this episode of Escaping the Echo Chamber. As always, give me a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow.